that statement from Monique Worrell coming into our newsroom just moments ago. And also just moments ago, I had the chance to speak with Dr. Larry Walker. He is a political analyst and also associate professor at UCF. And we talked about the political ramifications of this and the situation that we are, again, watching closely when it comes to a potential for suspension or removal of Monique Worrell from her seat as Ninth Circuit State Attorney.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing we have to realize is, that she's duly elected, and when that happens, your constituents choose you to make certain decisions as it relate legal decisions, and certainly this particular case obviously is getting a lot of press, but ultimately this is the job that she's been charged with. I think that we've seen a lot of challenges that DA Worrell has encountered as relates to the governor's office over the last year or two, and so I think this is part of that ongoing challenge in terms of local government compared to state government in terms of who makes decisions on certain issues, and so I think this is another example of that. But we'll see how this continues to play out. But obviously, this is not the end of this issue.
Does it surprise you to see the Attorney General kind of weigh in this way on a pending homicide case?
Nothing. I mean, we live in different times, and so I would say that nothing surprises me anymore. Particularly, like I said, and obviously here in the state of Florida, we've seen a lot of I would describe as oversight from the state level on some issues, but it is surprising this particular issue. The state DA deciding to get involved. I'm assuming we certainly will assume this relates to stand your ground law in terms of maybe how different individuals interpret what that law is. But ultimately, it looks like that this is going to go to trials, go to trial in a couple months, and a jury of her peers should ultimately decide if she's guilty or innocent.
Yeah, that you bring up the stand your ground law kind of at the center of this, and that is certainly something that we have seen, as part of a lot of political discussions, over the past years.
Yeah, you have this issue. Now that we should note not only here in the state of Florida, but other states have similar
Yeah.
laws. And depending, like I said, what attorney is interpreting it, how are they interpreting? Also, we have to be honest about this. What is the political moment like when also you add the layer of how you interpret this particular law? Like I said, here in the state of Florida or various other states that have it on the books. So, but at the local level, obviously, like I said, Worrell should ultimately making a decision and has so far about how this should be dealt with, and then we'll continue to see what the political ramifications are.
Uh, You alluded to this. This is not the first time that there has kind of been this. Back and forth between the state and Monique Worrell specifically. Obviously, she was removed from office the first time around before the voters put her back in. What do you think happens here? Do you think this would be something that we would see the governor again kind of flex that power and remove her from office?
I think anything's possible, and the governor, he does have that authority. But once again, Monique Worrell was elected by constituents, and it has a responsibility to obviously uphold the law, make sure that and those individuals who committed various crimes go to trial, and then like I said, let a jury decide about whether they're guilty or innocent. But ultimately, that's how things are supposed to work in terms of how we do things in our society and government. But I think all cards off the table, as you noted, and we know very well that she was removed a few years ago. So I would say anything is possible.
And big picture politically here too, before I let you go. When it comes to this kind of removal power, this is something that we have seen. Governor DeSantis, he doesn't shy away from kind of taking that step if it's something that he deems that he thinks needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I noted a few seconds ago, he has the authority to make those kind of decisions. But certainly we've seen, Worrell, others who've been removed have certainly challenged those in court. And, we've seen some judges suggest that, they can't reverse their decision. but have raised concerns about removal and Worrell, among, like I said, others. But it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out politically, particularly considering, like I said, Florida is over the last couple of years become the center of the mix of politics and ideology, so to speak. So we'll ultimately see what the governor decides to do if he, whatever choice he decides to do. And Monique Worrell has made it clear that she's going to stand on, the decision she's made and seek to take this in trial in a couple months.
And Dr. Walker, it is an interesting kind of tension here, because when you're talking about these sometimes philosophical differences between Republicans and Democrats and that kind of thing, for the governor to kind of have this power and ability to remove someone from office, for different reasons, over something that they disagree with, even though this is someone the voters kind of put into office. It's an interesting tension and kind of an interesting thing to think about when you're talking about the few kind of Democratic strongholds still in a very Republican state.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that while the state has the last several years is red and continued to tread in that direction, based on we see voting patterns, is that like Florida, like Texas and other red states have individuals with a variety of political views. And I think that's the other thing to keep in mind, is that Floridians, regardless of their how they vote, Democratic, Republican, Independent, etc., is that what is in the best interest of constituents that live not only large scale, lives in terms of the state, but locally, particularly, like I said, the point I made earlier about individual locally elected officials. And what's important as it relates to overall states' rights, as it relates to the federal government, and what it means for local jurisdictions in a state in terms of the rights that they should have.
Dr. Larry Walker, political analyst and a UCF associate professor. Now back to the letter from Attorney General James Uthmeier to Monique Worrell. You can see here, this is the end of that letter, saying, "You may not like Florida's self-defense laws, but those laws reflect the simple truth that a Floridian, a woman in this case, has the right to use deadly force to stop a man from brutalizing or killing her." Going on to say, "Your actions likely constitute a breach of your ethical obligations, and they may also constitute misfeasance, malfeasance, neglect of duty, and incompetence. I strongly urge you to reconsider your prosecution of Allgeo, and my office will evaluate whether further intervention is warranted." That letter signed sincerely, James Uthmeier. So the warning and the threat is clear from the Attorney General's office to State Attorney Monique Worrell. We are going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and as we do so, give you this live look at downtown Orlando. We'll be right back with more right here on Fox Local. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus and a live look at downtown Orlando on this Monday afternoon. I'm Garrett Weimer, and we appreciate you joining us here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Governor Ron DeSantis was in Plant City earlier today talking about the new sales tax holiday that is underway beginning today and running through the end of the calendar year. So September 8th through December 31st. Covers a lot of things like hunting gear, fishing gear, camping gear as well. And it also, for the first time, includes guns and ammunition. So this is what the governor is calling the Second Amendment sales tax holiday. There's no spending cap when it comes to those firearms and ammunition that are eligible for the sales tax holiday. Governor DeSantis today was at an outdoor store in Plant City and was talking about the importance of protecting Second Amendment rights, also pushing for open carry, constitutional carry, as they call it, without the need for a permit. And this was Governor DeSantis speaking in that news conference just a little bit ago.
And in terms of Second Amendment, we've made a lot of progress on this since I've been governor. I did sign legislation making Florida, joining now a majority of the 50 states for constitutional carry. You shouldn't need a permission slip to be able to exercise your rights. We also eliminated the ability for local governments to infringe on Second Amendment rights during a so-called state of emergency. Now, a lot of them have not tried this since I've been governor, but we've had a couple pop up, and then I've had to come over the top rope with an executive order saying, no, you don't get to use a hurricane as a basis to go after somebody's Second Amendment rights. And that ain't happening here. So we're able to get that into law. So at this point, it's not even going to be able to be tried to begin with, even though I would have batted it down and would have done so proudly. I do think we also made sure, so we have constitutional carry. The whole concealed carry license is not something that you need or is required in Florida, but they're still provided because some people want that for when they travel to other states. And in the Farm Bill, we were able to update those weapon license process to eliminate red tape and unnecessary bureaucratic delays. That had been a massive backlog under Nikki Fried when she was commissioner, because she didn't believe in it, didn't believe in Second Amendment. And so I think Commissioner Wilton Simpson has done a good job of really working through that, and that's much better now for Floridians who need that. I've been saying, though, we've got almost a 3-to-1 majority in the Florida House of Representatives. 38 states have open carry. It's not something that's controversial. The sky hasn't fallen in any of those. Why not pass that out of the Florida House of Representatives? And I've said for years that that'd be something that I would sign. Doesn't seem to get off the ground, even with all those Republicans all running, saying their Second Amendment, all banging their chests in the primaries, then get up to Tallahassee and not follow through. So I think they should just follow through, and I think they should do what they promised the voters they would do. But that brings us here today. So today, I'm proud to announce the beginning of our Second Amendment sales tax holiday, which will be no tax, no sales tax on the retail sale of firearms, ammunition, accoutrements, as well as items used for fishing or camping and other items used for hunting. And that is a big deal for a lot of people. This year's sales tax holiday will run from today, September 8th, until the end of the year, December 31st. And so this covers a lot of ground. As I mentioned, it covers ammunition. It covers bows and crossbows, as well as accessories. It covers firearms, including pistols, rifles, shotguns. It includes firearm accessories, holsters, grips, sights, stocks, cleaning kits, you name it, it's included. It also allows Floridians to save on supplies needed for other sportsman activities like camping and fishing. And it covers items, and there's usually a dollar limit to this as they go, but camping lanterns and flashlights, stoves, hammocks, chains, sleeping bags, tents, bait and tackle, tackle bags and boxes, rod and reels. And so some of those, as I said, will have a limit to where you're tax-free, as the legislature did, but nevertheless, it allows you to save money. So you can find the full list of tax-free items online at floridarevenue.com/huntfishcamp. floridarevenue.com/huntfishcamp. And if you purchase guns or ammo during our Second Amendment holiday, we are inviting you to exercise your rights at one of FWC's public shooting sports ranges. So in addition to several of our state's shooting sports ranges that are already free year-round, we are also announcing today that during this sales tax holiday, we will further commemorate our constitutional rights as we approach the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding by providing half-price range passes for various public ranges across the state. The dates and locations include Sunday, October 12th, Columbus Day, all ranges, all public ranges in Florida. Saturday, October 25th, and Saturday, December 6th at the Lakeland Range and at the Panama City Beach Range. Saturday, November 22nd, and Saturday, December 20th at the shooting range in St. Cloud and the Palm Beach County Shooting Sports Complex in West Palm Beach. Florida will also celebrate America's veterans and the freedom they have preserved for us by providing free range passes to all veterans at all ranges on Sunday, November 9th, in honor of Veterans Day. Finally, over the past 2 years, we've reduced the cost of our hunting and fishing licenses through promotions. That included the first year of our promotion, where we offered half-price lifetime and 5-year licenses, and last year's lifetime promotion for children's licenses. This year, in honor of America 250, we will be offering the usual $500 5-year gold sportsman's license for $250, cutting those costs in honor of the founding of the Republic and our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Floridians from all walks of life have been able to enjoy our great natural resources. We want to continue to reduce costs for our families so that they can enjoy the great outdoors. I want to thank everybody that's been involved. We also just, I think as most people know, we have the record Gulf red snapper season that I authorized earlier this year, including they were there Memorial Day weekend, which was earlier than anticipated. That's going to be continuing throughout the end of the year, and they have those dates if you need those. We have requested that the federal government delegate to the state of Florida management over Atlantic red snapper. We've shown how it can be done in the Gulf. Atlantic red snapper, they give like 1 or 2 days of red snapper for the entire Atlantic coast of Florida, and they're using faulty data. You talk to the fishermen out there, there's fish. I mean, they're like all over, and that's the same thing they told us in the Gulf when I first became governor. And we're like, all right, well, let's do it right. And Rodney at FWC and those guys have done a great job. We're ready to be able to take on the Atlantic, and I would love to be able to open a really strong Atlantic red snapper season. I know that'd be a huge thing for so many people on the east coast of Florida. So this is an exciting day. It's an exciting time. I know there's going to be some of our residents that are probably going to save a pretty good chunk of change here, knowing how they stock up on some of this stuff. So enjoy it, and we're going to continue to work hard to support taxpayers. So we're going to bring up some of our speakers now. So I think a lot of people in Tampa know our Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. He was a senator from nearby in a different part of Hillsborough County and did a great job in the Florida Senate. Really was actually the constitutional carry was his bill in the Florida Senate, got a great record on the Second Amendment. Also was the guy, he spearheaded our legislation that banned the purchase of farmland and other critical land by the Chinese Communist Party. We are the first, or one of the first states to do that. Now they're looking at doing that nationally, and Lieutenant Governor, then Senator Collins, now Lieutenant Governor Collins, was really leading the way on that. And then he's been really strong on school choice and really strong on law and order. And we take it for granted sometimes in Florida, but we are a law and order state. There are a lot of things that happen in other parts of this country that aren't permitted to happen here.
Governor Ron DeSantis speaking earlier about the Second Amendment sales tax holiday, also talking a lot about gun rights. He was asked about gun safety and talked about the importance of that as well. And so a lot of conversation about that. In the question and answer, he was also asked about the push to end vaccine mandates. We'll likely have more on that coming up in just a little bit, but we are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. As we do go to break, though, give you a live look outside the federal courthouse in Fort Pierce in St. Lucie County, where jury selection is underway in the federal trial of Ryan Routh, the suspect who is accused of attempting an assassination of President Donald Trump at his outside his golf course in South Florida. Routh is representing himself in this trial, and this jury selection again underway there, with opening statements expected to begin coming up later this week. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back, so keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Give you a live look at downtown Orlando. You see a lot of clouds there, and it looks like traffic moving along pretty well along I-4 there in town as well. We know that a lot of visitors are coming to Orlando for one reason or another. Central Florida seeing more visitors. Orange County breaking records. The county's hotel tax revenue topped last year's numbers at the latest release, bringing in $29.6 million from the tourist development tax back in July. But the CEO of Rosen Hotels thinks an additional 4% tourist tax could help even more. Frank Santos is the CEO of Rosen Hotels and Resorts, and he was on Good Day Orlando this morning to talk about why he believes that.
As Orange County continues to break records. So the county's hotel tax revenue topped last year's numbers. The county bringing in $29.6 million from tourist tax, development tax. That was just in the month of July, in 1 month. The CEO of Rosen Hotels thinks an additional 4% tourist tax could help the city and the county even more. Joining us live this morning to talk about this is the CEO of Rosen Hotels and Resorts and my good friend Frank Santos. Great to have you, Frank.
Good morning, Amy.
Thanks
it's
for
great
being
to be
here.
Thank you.
So nobody likes talking about taxes, let's be honest, right? But the one thing I think that people can embrace about the possibility of upping the tax is that it really wouldn't have an impact on locals. We're talking about a tourist tax. So let's talk a little bit about how that money, if this were to go into place, how it could help.
Sure. Well, my proposal is anywhere between 2 and 4 cents. When I started this research back in 2019, I realized that the community had some needs and that the citizens of Orlando and Orange County were voicing those concerns. My proposal is 2 cents, which would raise $120 million per year to use for public transportation. Items such as improving services on Sunrail, hopefully adding the weekend. You know, hotels are open 24/7.
Right.
And so we have associates that could use better public transportation on the weekends as well.
We hear that a lot, especially about Sunrail, right? People say, oh, I would have loved to have gone down to Winter Park this weekend or downtown this weekend to go to a concert, and the train isn't running. So what does it take, Frank, to implement or to push something like this through from your perspective? How does that work? How do you go about reaching the politicians?
Well, I've spoken to many of them, and I believe that they are supporting my concept and are willing to have a conversation. It certainly needs to start first here in the community with our hospitality leaders as well as our elected leaders. And then it actually has to go to Tallahassee and have approval. And we believe the process could take up to 2 years before it could actually be implemented.
How do we compare to other cities of our size? We're a good-sized city.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a huge influx of tourists here, so that makes us a little bit different. But when you compare us to other cities and the tourist tax dollars they bring in, did you do that research?
I sure did, and that's what the basis of my proposal has been. We're actually on the low side of taxes that surcharges, I prefer to call, onto our guests, 6.5% state sales tax and a 6 cents for the tourist development tax. And it is my goal to retain the uses of the current 6 cents for the purposes in which they were intended. And Anaheim, California, home of some theme parks as well as we enjoy here in Orlando, is currently at 17%. Again, we're at a total of 12.5%. Los Angeles is 15.5%. Baltimore is 17.5%. So there's a lot of data out there that can show the public where these taxes are higher than Orlando and Orange County.
So it would be an interesting conversation to watch. As you heard him say, it's kind of, it would be likely a couple-year-long process to kind of get that done, if that is something that ends up happening. So something to keep an eye on, that's for sure. Well, applications are now open for the Florida Hometown Heroes program. This is a way that people who serve their communities or serve their country can get help buying their first home by getting up to $35,000 to help with a down payment and with closing costs. Lawrence Bolito is the president of the Orlando Regional Realtor Association, and he was also on Good Day Orlando this morning to talk about how people can apply for this Hometown Heroes housing program.
Applications are now open for the Florida Hometown Heroes program. People who serve their communities or their country can get help buying their first home. They can get up to $35,000 to help with down payments and closing costs, and in this economy, that is certainly helpful. So let's talk to Lawrence Bolito this morning. He is the 2025 Orlando Regional Realtor Association president. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to see you.
Good to see you. So glad you're back with us this morning. What an important thing, especially given the high interest rates and given the cost of housing. How does this program work?
It's an amazing program, and the way it works is that you get a allotted amount of funds for your down payment and or closing costs up to, like you mentioned, $35,000, and minimum $10,000 in either or.
Who can sign up for it?
Anyone that are frontline workers or what we consider heroes, people that are in education, the medical field, law enforcement, and veterans or military.
But let's say somebody does not work in any of those professions. Are they able to sign up for this program?
Unfortunately, no. It's only designed for essential workers. Now, the last time that this was out, as long as you had a job in Florida, you did qualify, but they changed the restrictions now.
Why is it important that essential workers get this break?
It's very important because we want our frontline workers to stay in the same community that they were serving in. So it's very important with the interest rates, which have softened up finally. We're down to 6.5%. With the prices that are still a little bit high. These are programs that are designed to help our essential workers. And
this is something that you do for a living, right? So let's talk about the housing market right now. What is it looking like, and what do you see for the future in terms of the pricing?
I'm seeing a great future for Central Florida. Right now, like I mentioned, we're at 6.5%, so we're going to see a lot more buyers out there shopping. We're currently at 5.3 months of inventory, and 6 months is always our healthy balanced market for buyers and sellers.
One of the things I hear is marry the house, not the rate.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
And why
yes.
so?
Because you want to get into your dream home. You don't want to worry just about the interest rate. You want to get into the dream house of that you've always lived up to and wanted to be in. Get it now, and then later, once the interest rates softened up, then you can go ahead and refinance your loan.
And so then with this program for these essential workers, they'll be able to get this money, but do they have to pay it back, or is it something that's given to them?
No, it's given to them.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yes.
And are you getting great feedback on this program? I can only imagine. My father was a teacher for 40 years. It's not easy.
Absolutely. So many people are taking advantage of it that the program has an amount of funds in the county, and then it's gone after a while. It goes very fast.
And so where can people go, Lawrence, if they want more information about this amazing program?
Always contact their mortgage professional. They're the ones that are going to have the most information, and they're better equipped to give the information back to the consumer.
Well, what a great program indeed. Lawrence.
It's certainly something that folks should know about, and could certainly be a big help. $35,000 again to help with a down payment and closing costs as well. We are going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus. As we do so, give you a live look at the Fox 35 Storm Team Storm Tracker radar right now. We are seeing some showers to the northern end of the viewing area. Looks like up in Flagler County, up to Putnam County, some other St. John's maybe as well. So we're tracking some showers in the area, something we're going to have to keep an eye on for a lot of the week. Some increased rain chances and storm chances as well. So we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Over the weekend, U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Democrat from Florida's 25th district in South Florida, hosted the second Cancer Survivorship Summit. This happened at Nova Southeastern University, which is in the Fort Lauderdale area. They had a lot of workshops, discussions, resources to help out as well. The focus was education and awareness about survivorship and helping people who battled cancer kind of really thrive on the other side of that cancer battle. There are 18 million cancer survivors in the United States, according to statistics, but that number is expected to grow to 26 million by 2040. So certainly a growing, experience for many, and so something that kind of raises the importance and urgency of this message of education and awareness, getting these resources out there. And those topics. So this is, I want to play for you the opening remarks from Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz at this summit. It was I think a 5-hour conference, essentially a lot of different discussion topics and kind of angles and panels that were covered. But this was Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz's opening remarks at that important event on Saturday.
Because cancer touches all of us. Today, there are more than 18 million cancer survivors in the United States, as you heard from Dr. Sharif, and by 2040, that number will likely reach 26 million. Now, we'd rather have survivors than mortality, but every year, 2 million more people are diagnosed with cancer. Thanks to advances in research, treatment, technology, and early detection, more of us are living longer, fuller lives after hearing those dreaded words, "You have cancer." For survivor, the moment you hear those words, everything changes. Your world literally turns upside down. Questions flood your mind. Am I going to die? Can I keep my job? How will my family cope? How will I pay for this? You are consumed by frantic thoughts of mortality. Appointments, medications, side effects, they all start to dictate and eventually control your life on a daily basis. Routines that once seemed ordinary, taking your kids to school, seeing friends, enjoying hobbies, suddenly feel both impossible and precious. And even if it's not you, but someone you love, those words change your life forever. That moment will dictate so much of the rest of your life and, of course, your family's lives. Hearing those words, you forget where you're going or what you're supposed to do. I know because I heard them. And after that, everything is harder, more of an obstacle that you feel like you can't see over. Managing your life becomes so overwhelming. Some worry how they will pay for their care. How will you be able to help your family moving forward? What should you share with your children and when? Or do you want to share your diagnosis at all with anyone other than only those who need to know? Life is so very different when you've been diagnosed with cancer, or when you are caring for someone who has cancer, or if someone you love is battling cancer. Even if it's not you, but a loved one or close friend who heard those dreaded words, we have all been there. 17 years ago, I heard those 3 words myself: "You have breast cancer." I was also hit with a second punch when a genetic test determined that I carried the BRCA2 gene mutation, which as an Ashkenazi Jewish woman, a Jewish woman of Eastern European descent, I had a much higher likelihood of carrying, and I didn't even know that. That meant I was 5 times more likely to develop breast cancer and had up to an 85% chance of ovarian cancer before age 50. I fought through 15 months of surgeries and treatment privately, sharing the news only with those I needed to know. Thankfully, I remain cancer-free today. But that experience changed me. I emerged fiercely determined even more to use my voice, my vote, and strength to help eradicate this terrible disease, and it gave me a personal mission. As a legislator, I knew I could use my platform to help others survive, to make sure that women caught cancer early, and to fight for access to care. That mission has guided much of my career in public service. Healthcare policy and keeping people safe, healthy, and protected are the foundation of why I serve. And it's been one area where I'm thankful to have made real policy impacts, particularly with cancer. I never want anyone to hear those words that I did over 17 years ago, but if they do, I want us to be able to be there for them during and after their diagnosis and treatment. And we want them to be able to catch it early, increasing their chance for survival. Throughout my entire professional career, I've advocated for education, early detection, prevention, and survivorship. My top policy priorities strive to enhance and protect access to early screenings. It's clearly one of the best tools that we have to beat this disease. I fought relentlessly to pass a law, the EARLY Act, that created a national education and awareness campaign that raises awareness about breast cancer risks that younger women face. It also targets awareness efforts to women at higher risk and funds an education campaign for providers to share the unique ways that breast cancer manifests in younger women. Because too often, even healthcare providers are not aware that young women can and do get breast cancer, and that when we get breast cancer, it often manifests and shows in different ways. Too often, we have gaps in our ability to make sure that we can even be diagnosed. This law also provides grants for groups to help with this mission, and some of these great organizations are with us here today. The funding assists young women dealing with the unique challenges that we face when battling breast cancer. I also passed a law that guarantees women's access to annual mammograms starting at age 40. The fact that we had to make that a law is a story for another day, but the fight continues, and so does the law to ensure that we have access to health care when it is scientifically documented that that is essential. And I recently created a program with $10 million in annual funding to increase access to cancer screenings and treatment referrals in underserved communities, because access to screenings and care, thank you so much, access to screenings and care saves lives, and your address and your socioeconomic status should not be a barrier to that access. But the work we do doesn't end at diagnosis. Survivorship itself needs more attention. That's why I'm fighting to pass an ambitious piece of legislation, my Comprehensive Cancer Survivorship Act. Thank you. This legislation takes on the entire survivorship journey, from diagnosis to treatment to hopefully your natural end of life. Too many survivors, and that's why we're here today, feel lost in the transition. They finish treatment and then suddenly the support system fades. That's unacceptable. Survivorship is lifelong, and it is a journey. And we cannot just throw people at the end of their active treatment into the wilderness to face the Wild West and figure out what pathway is the right one for them, or assume that once you're done with active treatment, everything's good and you don't need to worry about anything anymore, or assume that people don't worry about anything anymore. I am confident that I will continue to be a survivor, but I think about my breast cancer and have physical manifestations of it every single day. And every survivor here, I am sure, is in the same boat. So survivorship is about empowering patients to make choices, helping families navigate the unknown, and assuring no one's situation is ignored. There is no single right way to navigate survivorship, but whatever your path, you should never do it alone. I've collaborated with so many of you in this room on this bill, and so I thank you again for all your tireless support for our mission. This survivorship journey is about having comprehensive support throughout our lives so we can survive and thrive. And my hope is that we can make this legislation the law of the land and build upon its foundation for generations to come. And that brings us here to this summit. It's one more tool in our arsenal to help survivors, a gathering of expertise, resources, information, answers, and a call to action. Because really, how many of us have time in our lives to run around and try to find all these resources individually on our own, one at a time? So making sure we have, at least annually, a one-stop shop for cancer survivorship and our families and caregivers and all the people that are trying to help make sure that we grow more survivors while we're still battling the beast that is cancer is essential. Today is about shining a light on the survivorship journey, supporting survivors, families, caregivers, and providers. It's about making sure survivors don't feel lost or forgotten, and that they leave here with hope, tools, and community. We have speakers, workshops, a resource fair, and mobile units, all to provide knowledge, services, and support. And I encourage you to take part in every aspect of what today has to offer. At our core, we're all here because we share the same mission, to eradicate cancer as we know it. And we have all come together today to conquer some part of that unified mission. A cancer diagnosis manifests very personally, and each of us experiences it differently. And my wish is that everyone finds some useful part of what you need today during our shared mission, and afterward we'll all feel a little less lost as we climb that daunting mountain. So here's what to expect today. You'll be exposed to a lot of important information. We'll have many experts on this stage, experts that are some of the brightest minds in cancer care, coordination, and advocacy, and they'll discuss many topics in presentations, panels, and a fireside chat. In the afternoon, we'll have some interactive workshops covering financial toxicity, survivorship connections, and health and wellness. Thank you to Blood Cancer United, Gilda's Club South Florida, and Baptist Health for leading these important workshops. They're a great opportunity for you to get a more interactive and personalized learning experience. And we also have a resource fair and mobile units offering their services. So thank you again to the many, many organizations and providers for devoting their time and their services to our community. My office also has a table out there if you have any questions or need to discuss any constituent assistance with a federal agency. And don't hesitate to stop by and say hi to my team, even if you just want to put yourself on our contact list so you can receive updates from us when they are relevant. And I especially encourage you to keep in touch with me and my remarkable team over time. Lastly, I'll close with this. Cancer is not and should never be a partisan issue. Cancer certainly doesn't care what party you belong to, but I'll make this one point. A dramatic effort is underway to erase and erode a lot of the progress that we are making in our fight against cancer, a fight that has helped prevent cancer from disrupting and ending more lives. And I knew I'd break at some point. And so long as those rollbacks continue, the cancer risks that we all confront will not disappear, but in fact grow. Survivorship must give us a chance to come together across political differences, united by a shared mission. We each have a role to play, including fighting against those rollbacks and those cuts. We have a lot of work ahead of us. But standing here today, looking out at all of you, I know we are united as a family, friends, and a community to press forward and continue to make progress. You are in my corner, and I promise I will always be in yours.
Certainly so many people have been touched by and affected by cancer in one way or another, and so certainly an important mission there. If you would like to see more from that summit, they live streamed the whole thing. It's on YouTube. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has that on her YouTube page. The keynote remarks were from an official with the Florida Panthers who lost a number of family members to cancer, and so hearing his story, very personal as well. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to let you know a couple of things that we are monitoring as we get close to the 2 o'clock hour here. Give you a live look again outside the federal courthouse in Fort Pierce, where in St. Lucie County, where Ryan Routh, the trial of the man accused of plotting to assassinate President Trump, is getting underway. Jury selection today, opening arguments expected on Thursday, or at least later this week. We'll see how long it takes for them to seat a jury in that case. Some interesting developments in that. We've seen Fox News report that, well, we know that Routh is representing himself, and so some of his questions apparently for jury selection had been thrown out by the judge. Probably just the first of several interesting developments that we will see come from that federal courthouse. We're going to talk about this in just a couple of minutes with Jose Rivas. He is not affiliated with that case. He is a criminal defense attorney we've talked to many times here on Fox 35 News Plus. Always has a lot of great insight, and we're going to talk with him about what to expect in this trial and that process as well of representing himself, Ryan Routh, in that case. So keep it right here on Fox 35 News Plus. We are going to transition into Florida Live at the top of the hour, so we hope you keep it right here on Fox Local and on YouTube. And for the first time, Florida Live will also be airing live on TV, so we'll be on Fox 35 as well. So we are going to take one more break here, give you a live look at downtown Orlando, and then we'll be back at the top of the hour with Florida Live. So keep it right here on Fox Local and on YouTube.
At least a half hour ago, and my tongue is burning from this thing. The reason it's so small is this literally could kill the entire San Fernando Valley. Just this. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you, and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local, YouTube, and starting today for the first time on Fox 35 TV as well. So we appreciate you joining us. If you're watching us for the first time here, I want to say hello to you. We are kind of like a podcast-style news show with a statewide focus, a little bit different than your typical kind of newscast. And so if you are joining us for the first time here on Fox 35 and just kind of stumbling across us, I want to let you know here's a little bit about what makes us different. So we've been streaming for months here on Fox Local. This show is live, it is raw, it is unfiltered. That means we're covering news conferences straight from the source. We have live interviews with newsmakers, with leaders, with others in the know, and we are bringing you the news literally as we get it right here from Fox 35. So if you've been watching us here on Fox Local, I want to let you know nothing's really changing. Same format, same show, just now a bigger audience, and we appreciate you joining us if you are joining us on Fox 35. And I want to let you know if you don't have the Fox Local app on your phone, on your smart TV, download that because we stream news and local content all day long. So you'll want to join us on there either before or after this show as well. Well, again, it is a busy Monday already. Let me give you a live look here at the federal courthouse in Fort Pierce, Florida. That is St. Lucie County, where Ryan Routh, the suspect who is accused of plotting to assassinate President Trump, is in court today. Jury selection underway for the trial. Opening arguments expected to begin on Thursday. And a couple of interesting notes here in this case, because Ryan Routh is representing himself in this case. He is facing up to life in prison in connection with this case. And joining us live now via Zoom to kind of talk about what we can expect in this trial is Jose Rivas, a criminal defense attorney who is not associated with this case, but we've had, Jose, we've had you on I don't know how many times, and now you always do a great job breaking all these topics down for us, and we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Pleasure to be here.
Jose, this is obviously a trial that is going to be getting a lot of attention. First, I just want to kind of talk about jury selection in a trial like this and what it would be like trying to seat a jury for something when you're talking about an attempted assassination of the president.
Well, you know, when you want to pick a jury, you're fishing for the best team. It's like picking a team for any sport. You want to pick those that have the same vision that you do. You want to pick those that can relate to you. But there's also a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules that must be followed, the type of questions that must be answered. And representing yourself can prove a challenge getting through that process for the court and for the judge.
To that end, we do know, as I mentioned, I said that Ryan Routh is representing himself in this, and we saw some reporting earlier from Fox News that the judge had to toss out some of Ruth's questions for jury selection. Can you give us an idea of the kinds of, kind of what that process is like when it comes to what you are allowed and what you might not be allowed to ask of the jury when you're trying to find out who you want to be seated for that trial?
Well, you're trying to pick somebody that's, you want to be impartial, so to speak. So you don't want to pick somebody just because there's some kind of ethnic race, for example, or they make X amount of money. There's ways to ask questions and be able, and usually when they sit down at the panel, you'll have a list of notes. What do they do for a living? Where do they work? What kind of, do they have any kind of history? Usually they don't, but you'll know a little bit about this individual. And that way you can, if they're a school teacher, you'll be able to ask them questions based on that. So that's the key. The key is, you got to ask questions where they're not going to violate, some of the rules of the game, for example. You don't want the other party or give the impression you're just trying to pick individuals based on some kind of racial profiling, on some kind of economic, those could be done, but you have to have a parameter. There's a way to ask a question for all of those.
Routh is, as we said, representing himself in this, but we are told there are attorneys that are kind of on standby to help out if needed. How does that kind of work in situations like this where you have someone representing themselves and some other attorneys who are there, I guess, if needed?
Well, again, it's just like playing in a field in a sport. You're coming here, and the reality is, in a judicial system, the truth does not matter. And I'll say that again: the truth does not matter. It's the evidence that's admissible. So a lot of time you can have a picture, for example, and you want to present it to the jury. There's a procedure. You have to authenticate it first before you can present it to. So it's mostly about procedure. That's the reason they're there. He's going to be first share. He's going to have these individuals in the background, perhaps to teach him or show him, hey, this is how you introduce this picture. But he's going to be running the show. He's going to be making the calls, what evidence comes in, what evidence he wants to object to, if there's any kind of motion that need to be done. But it's very risky. It's going to be a trial. It's going to take a lot longer than it really should take, just based because he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know the rules of the game.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit, because I'm curious what a jury makes of that when, you have a defendant trying to represent themselves, and that does it turn into, or is it at risk of kind of turning into a bit of a sideshow and a distraction for the jury trying to focus on the details of this case, but maybe having to get swept up in some of the procedural happenings and other mistakes that Routh may make in trying to defend himself?
Correct. This is what I call an appeals nightmare. What happens is that the judge can't give him any slack because he doesn't know the rules, because he's not an attorney, because he's not trained. He's got to apply the same set of rules for evidence to the prosecution and to him for the defense. So he can't cut him any slack. So what happens is that he's going to have to make those decisions, and they might be tough decisions. But again, and sometimes you'll be like, okay, this evidence, it's a great piece of evidence, but since you don't know how to introduce that piece of evidence, you just lost your case. And remember, in a case like this, you have to object, during the trial, although you have to preserve the record so you can appeal. If he gets convicted and he gets sentenced to life, and he didn't know when to object or to certain questions or certain evidence, that could make a big difference whether he's going to be able to be successful at appealing a conviction.
Jose, you talked about the attention that this case has gotten. What will you be looking for in this? And obviously, this comes with the caveat, we know cameras are not allowed inside a federal court, so we're kind of getting this all from reporters inside. But what will you be kind of watching for to see come from this trial?
Well, you got to remember, this is not just it's not just a battery case, not just a simple. This is here we're talking, the president of the United States. You have a judge here who's going to try to appear to be impartial. You're going to have to pick a jury who appears to be impartial, regardless of, there's obviously an element of politics in here. And then you also have an individual want to represent himself. I'm sure the court already determined that he's competent. Now, but just because you're competent and you understand the proceeding doesn't necessarily mean that you have the knowledge and the skill to be able to proceed in a trial. And that's something you can't come back later. The judge made it very clear in this type of cases. I see it all the time in court. If you want to proceed, you have the right to represent yourself. But the issue is we're not going to have any slack. We're going to play by the same. We're not going to change the rules for you just because you don't know the procedure.
Jose Rivas, a criminal defense attorney, always appreciate your perspective and expertise. And thanks for joining us here on Florida Live today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We are going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but I do want to let you know one other thing that we are monitoring at this hour. Let me give you a live look right now inside the Orlando City Council chambers, where we expect to vote shortly on a couple of different Pulse Memorial related items. One of them a funding agreement with Orange County. The county we know approved $5 million toward the memorial. There's a $12 million expected cost, so kind of a $7 and $5 million kind of sharing funding agreement for that we expect council to vote on shortly. They will also vote on the design agreement with Gomez Construction Company. That is the Winter Park firm that was selected by the city to construct that memorial. So we are standing by and monitoring this meeting going on right now as well. We're going to take our first break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back with much more. So keep it here on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to our friends at Fox 13 Tampa Bay and Fox 13 news anchor Linda Hurtado. And Linda, good to see you. We appreciate you joining us on this Monday.
Nice talking with you, Garrett. Governor Ron DeSantis in Plant City today talking about sales tax holidays. The governor, along with Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, held a news conference this morning. Today is the first day of the 2025 hunting, fishing, and camping season sales tax holiday. This year, state lawmakers added guns, ammunition, and firearm accessories to the list of exemptions, which Governor DeSantis calls the Second Amendment tax holiday. Other hunting supplies on that list include crossbows and crossbow accessories. Many camping and fishing supplies are included as well, such as bait and fishing tackle, flashlights, tackle boxes, camping, stoves, sleeping bags, fishing rods, reels, and tents, lots of stuff. During today's news conference, the governor talked about his push for tax relief across the board, ranging from sales tax to property tax.
So that is ultimately, I think, what people want. I think it's the best way for us as elected officials to help facilitate meaningful relief for people. You know, we've lived through a really tough period of inflation, prices at the grocery store, all these other things. As states, certainly, you know, we can't control the overall economic situation in terms of prices nationally. We're affected by that. The one thing that we can control is the tax. And so if we can do this, I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air, a sigh of relief for so many people. So stay tuned. We're going to push for that.
I must say, that's the first time I've seen the governor do a news conference with a giant bear behind him.
Right.
The sales tax holiday runs, right? Just an unusual visual there. The sales tax holiday runs through the end of the year, along with the tax relief. Governor DeSantis also announced today that half-price passes will be offered on select dates between now and December at various public shooting ranges across the state. Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, let's move to Pinellas, says a high-tech tool saved the life of one of its canines. Sergeant Mike Killian says he was helping track a stolen vehicle during a recent investigation when he noticed a large plume of smoke coming from the area where the truck was parked. That's when he says he rushed over to see what was wrong.
So I ran back to the truck, and what happened was there was a malfunction in the engine, which caused all the oil to go into the engine, and all the smoke was coming through the AC vents into the cab of the truck. Luckily, the alarm went off, the windows went down. Eddie was in distress when I got there. I got him out of the truck, but the alarm saved his life. There's no doubt about it that he would have been dead.
Well, he credits an alarm system known as Hot and Pop Pro for saving Eddie, saying the alarm went off and the windows went down to help with the ventilation. With the Hot and Pop Pro is activated, alarms go off, the windows roll down, and canine handlers get an alert whenever the temperature inside that vehicle gets to be about 85 degrees. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office has the system installed in all of its canine vehicles. Killian says Eddie is doing much better now. And Garrett, have you ever been to the Strawberry Festival?
I haven't, but you know what? I was just looking over this and thinking, I think this year might have to be the time that I make my first venture out to it. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of right smack in the middle of, you and I, so not too far away. It is one of the biggest annual events in the Tampa Bay area. Excitement is already building ahead of the 2026 event. Organizers say the theme for the 91st annual festival is still growing. A new theme is created each year to give festival goers a sneak peek at what they can expect during this 11-day event. And while the theme comes promotional artwork, and this year it features the signature strawberry character, donning some sunglasses and a farmer's hat while holding a crate of strawberries. So what exactly does the still growing theme stand for? Well, organizers say it, quote, reflects the festival's continued growth in agriculture, entertainment, and community while paying tribute to Plant City's rich strawberry industry. Florida Strawberry Festival Chairman of the Board, Pam Warnock, also put out a statement writing, quote, still growing beautifully captures who we are as a festival and a community. Just like the strawberries we celebrate, we're still growing, and that growth allows us to provide new experiences while honoring the heritage that makes the festival so loved. excuse me, and each year about 600,000 people attend the Florida Strawberry Festival. It has rides, as you've seen in the video, and attractions such as livestock shows and the neighborhood village, a variety of food vendors, and the Strawberry Parade. Another big part of the festivities is the concerts, featuring a mix of artists across several decades of music. The 2026 concert lineup should come out later this year, and next year's Strawberry Festival runs from February 26th through March 8th in Plant City. Look at that crowd. They get a lot of people there, so yes, you got to try it.
Yeah, a big draw. What's your favorite part about the Strawberry Festival, Linda?
Oh, well, the food, of course.
hard not to pick that.
It's just delicious.
Sure. Yeah, I bet a lot of great options there. Well, Fox 13 News anchor Linda Hurtado, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection today.
All right, Garrett, thanks.
We are going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and also on Fox 35. Some words of warning today from State Attorney General James Uthmeier to State Attorney Monique Worrell in Orlando.
This is Attorney General James Uthmeier. This morning, our office is again putting Orlando's State Attorney Monique Worrell on notice. You got it wrong in a recent case. You acted in error. State Attorney Worrell, who historically has not prosecuted a lot of cases she should have, did so here in a case against a woman who justifiably engaged in self-defense, who justifiably stood her ground. Late last year, Tina Allgeo was driving her car when she engaged in a road rage spat. But unlike many road rage incidents, this one ended in violence. The gentleman in the other vehicle, the offender, he got out of his car. He went over and approached Tina's unmoving vehicle, ripped open the door, violently attacked her, hit her, and tried to drag her out of her vehicle. It was at this point that Tina grabbed a lawfully owned firearm and engaged in deadly force. She was being attacked in a confined space, her own car. Under Florida law, She justifiably stood her ground and acted in self-defense. So we're calling on State Attorney Worrell, fix this, right this wrong. Here in the AG's office, we will stand strong for people that rightly engage in self-defense. Thank you.
And that was a video from Attorney General Uthmeier's X account, posted that to social media earlier today. Now, this is the case we're talking about. This happened back in December on East Colonial Drive. Tina Allgeo is accused of shooting and killing Mikhail Zvetkov. In that incident that you saw the surveillance video shown in that social media video showing where Zvetkov appears to go to Allgeo's car, open the door. Attorney Mark O'Mara, representing Tina Allgeo, argued that she acted in self-defense in connection, under the state's Florida's Stand Your Ground law. And she, though, is charged with second-degree murder in this case, in what investigators had previously called a deadly road rage shooting. And so I want to show you the letter that we also know that the Attorney General sent to State Attorney Monique Worrell, who is the state attorney and the prosecutor for Orange and Osceola counties. We also should note, for context, in case you didn't know, she had been previously removed during her first term in office for that seat because the governor, Ron DeSantis, saying she wasn't fulfilling her duties. Now, this is a look at the first page of that letter, saying Floridians have the right to stand their ground when faced with imminent death or great bodily harm. With that in view, I'm troubled and puzzled by your prosecution of Tina Allgeo. That is from the letter from James Uthmeier to Monique Worrell. Now, this afternoon, I spoke with Dr. Larry Walker, who is a political analyst and a UCF associate professor, and we talked about the political ramifications of this, kind of where things go from here with this another controversy between the state and the state attorney.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing we have to realize is, that she's duly elected, and when that happens, your constituents choose you to make certain decisions as legal decisions. And certainly this particular case obviously is getting a lot of press, but ultimately this is the job that she's been charged with. I think that, we've seen a lot of challenges that DA Worrell has encountered as it relates to the governor's office over the last, year or two. And so I think this is part of that ongoing challenge in terms of local government compared to state government in terms of who makes decisions on certain issues. And so I think this is another example of that. But we'll see how this continues to play out. But obviously, this is not the end of this issue.
Does it surprise you to see the Attorney General kind of weigh in this way on a pending homicide case?
Nothing. I mean, we live in different times. And so I would say that nothing surprises me anymore, particularly, like I said, and obviously here in the state of Florida, we've seen a lot of I would describe as oversight from the state level on some issues. But it is surprising this particular issue, the state DA deciding to get involved. I'm assuming we certainly will assume this relates to Stand Your Ground law in terms of maybe how different individuals interpret what that law is. But ultimately, it looks like that this is going to go to trial in a couple months, and a jury of her peers should ultimately decide if she's guilty or innocent.
Yeah, that you bring up the Stand Your Ground law kind of at the center of this, and that is certainly something that we have seen, as part of a lot of political discussions, over the past years.
Yeah, you have this issue. We should note not only here in the state of Florida, but other states have similar laws. And depending, like I said, what attorneys interpreting it, how are they interpreting? Also, we have to be honest about this. What is the political moment like when also you add the layer of how you interpret this particular law? Like I said, here in the state of Florida or various other states that have it on the books. So, but at the local level, obviously, like I said, Worrell should be ultimately making a decision and has so far about how this should be dealt with, and then we'll continue to see what the political ramifications are.
You alluded to this. This is not the first time that there has kind of been this back and forth between the state and Monique Worrell specifically. Obviously, she was removed from office the first time around before the voters put her back in. What do you think happens here? Do you think this would be something that we would see the governor again kind of flex that power and remove her from office?
I think anything's possible, and the governor, he does have that authority. But once again, Monique Worrell was elected by constituents, and it has a responsibility to obviously uphold the law, make sure that those individuals who committed various crimes go to trial, and then like I said, you decide, let a jury decide about whether they're guilty or innocent. But ultimately, that's how things are supposed to work in terms of how we do things in our society and government. But I think all cards off the table, as you noted, and we know very well that she was removed a few years ago. So I would say anything is possible.
And big picture politically here too, before I let you go. When it comes to this kind of removal power, this is something that we have seen. Governor DeSantis, he doesn't shy away from kind of taking that step if it's something that he deems that he thinks needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I noted a few seconds ago, he has the authority to make those kind of decisions. But certainly we've seen, Worrell, others who've been removed have certainly challenged those in court. And, we've seen some judges suggest that, they can't reverse their decision, but have raised concerns about, removal and Worrell, among, like I said, others. But, it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out politically. Particularly considering, like I said, Florida is over the last couple of years become the center of the mix of politics and ideology, so to speak. So we'll ultimately see what the governor decides to do if he, whatever choice he decides to do. And Monique Worrell has made it clear that she's going to stand on the decision she's made and seek to take this in trial in a couple months.
And Dr. Walker, it is an interesting kind of tension here, because when you're talking about these sometimes philosophical differences between Republicans and Democrats and that kind of thing, for the governor to kind of have this power and ability to remove someone from office, for different reasons, over something that they disagree with, even though this is someone the voters kind of put into office. It's an interesting tension and kind of an interesting thing to think about when you're talking about the few kind of Democratic strongholds still in a very Republican state.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that while the state is the last several years is red and continued to tread in that direction, based on we see voting patterns, is that, like Florida, like Texas and other red states have individuals with a variety of political views. And I think that's the other thing to keep in mind is that, Floridians, regardless of their, how they vote, Democratic, Republican, Independent, et cetera, is that what is in the best interest of constituents that live not only large scale, lives in terms of the state, but locally, particularly, like I said, the point I made earlier about individual locally elected officials. And, what's important as it relates to overall states' rights as it relates to the federal government and what it means for local jurisdictions in a state in terms of the rights that they should have.
Dr. Larry Walker, a political analyst and UCF associate professor. Now, here's another look at the second page of this letter that Uthmeier sent to Monique Worrell's office, saying you may not like Florida's self-defense laws, but those laws reflect the simple truth that a Floridian, a woman in this case, has the right to use deadly force to stop a man from brutalizing or killing her. He goes on to say your actions likely constitute a breach of your ethical obligations, and they may also constitute misfeasance, malfeasance, neglect of duty, and incompetence. Going on to say, I strongly urge you to reconsider your prosecution of Allgeo, and my office will evaluate whether further intervention is warranted. So you can kind of get the potential threat that is implicit in that letter. We did also get a response from Monique Worrell's office. This statement sent to us here at Fox 35 saying, every day the Attorney General's inexperience with criminal prosecution becomes more abundantly clear. It risks the public safety and credibility of our criminal legal system for every Floridian. State attorneys are constitutionally empowered to exercise discretion in determining when charges should be brought. That discretion requires prosecutors to evaluate whether sufficient evidence exists to establish probable cause and whether the matter should properly be presented to a grand jury or court. In a homicide case where one individual's life has been taken, the gravity of the circumstances demands thorough evaluation. Worrell going on to say that Florida's self-defense laws, including the Stand Your Ground statute, provide certain immunities when the use of force is justified. However, whether that justification applies in any given case is a matter for judicial determination, not partisan politics. Prosecutors do not serve as extensions of the governor or the attorney general. We serve the people of our circuit in accordance with Florida law. The attorney general's attempts to intimidate or override independent prosecutorial judgment erode public trust in the impartial administration of justice. So the war of words today between Attorney General James Uthmeier and Monique Worrell, the state prosecutor for Orange and Osceola counties. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back after this. And as we go to break here, going to leave you with a live look at downtown Orlando. You can see the clouds gathering. We're tracking more storm chances this afternoon here in Central Florida. Keep it here. More Florida Live after this, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. Welcome back into Florida Live. Give you a live look right now at downtown Orlando on this Monday afternoon, and we appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. I do want to let you know we are still monitoring things happening right now inside the Orlando City Council chambers, where we expect to vote shortly on a couple of Pulse-related things when it comes to the Pulse Memorial, including a funding agreement with Orange County, a design agreement with Gomez Construction Company. They're the Winter Park firm that was selected by the city to construct that project. 3 firms were kind of finalists. 3 firms bid on it, I should say. And this firm from Winter Park, Gomez, the one that was selected to build it. So a couple of things there. that we are still monitoring at this hour here on Florida Live. Well, Governor Ron DeSantis was in Plant City earlier today. We talked about it a little bit ago with Linda as she was talking about the sales tax holidays, and the governor talking about the Second Amendment sales tax holiday that's kind of running through the end of the year. One of the other things that he discussed, he was asked several questions about vaccine mandates and the push that was announced last week by the governor and by the State Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo. They're pushing to end vaccine mandates here in the state of Florida, including the requirements the vaccine requirements for schools. And so there's been some controversy over that. There's been some national headlines over this talk here in Florida. And so Governor DeSantis was asked about that today in this news conference in Plant City about the state's push and why he believes ending vaccine mandates is the right move.
Well, I would just say, I've never been in favor of mandates, so let's just be clear on that. Now, there are things that have been in law that are legacy. In Florida, when you talk about schools, we have very generous exemptions. And so I think what you see is a lot of parents use that as it is now. And I also think a lot of people don't realize, there's a lot of countries in Europe, especially UK, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, most of the provinces in Canada here in North America, they have zero mandates. And yet you end up seeing pretty similar results. So I think people are conflating not forcing somebody with somehow not making it available. It'll be available for whoever wants it. But the way certainly our schools work now is parents do have, the ability, to exercise those exemptions. And the reality is this: since COVID and the disaster that the medical establishment inflicted on people and the lies that were told, people have lost confidence in the medical establishment. You have seen an increase in parents who are opting for those exemptions. The Surgeon General believes, and I believe, that if you actually didn't say you've got to take this, otherwise you're going to be punished, I think you'd actually have more uptake on some of those. I think there's some people, they're being told they have to do it, so they're opting for the exemption. But if they were told, hey, here's why you would want to do it, I actually think you'd see more. And that's why in Britain and some of these, they have high uptakes on those because people have trust. But one of the things so I've never been for mandates. But one of the things that I think is really, really frustrating to see how this gets weaponized. First, we saw it during COVID. They wanted to say that if you didn't get a COVID mRNA shot and show proof of that you shouldn't be able to go to restaurants, you shouldn't be able to go to sporting events, shouldn't be able to attend college, you shouldn't be able to go K through 12 school without having any data to back that up. And they were even trying to impose mandates on people who had recovered from COVID and had natural immunity. So it was unscientific. It was basically them trying to control. Now, we batted that back in Florida. We banned vaccine passports. We made sure that colleges and universities couldn't mandate, no mandate K-12, no workplace mandates and everything like that. And that saved a lot of people's livelihoods and jobs who were not in a situation where that was something, that they wanted to do. But what happens now, and then the CDC under Biden, they added the COVID mRNA shot to the childhood immunization schedule. The problem with that is that there was not a scientific basis to do that. They're doing it, and and parents have rebelled. The vast, vast majority of parents do not do the COVID shot for that. So it's like, where are they coming up with this? So I think the trust has really been broken. But what really bugs me, because I think the schools, there's exemptions, and so I actually don't think the outcome would be much different at all. But I think on some of these other things where you can be turned away from a doctor's office if your 6-year-old didn't take a hepatitis B shot, that's a sexually transmitted disease. Like, look, sitting in a classroom in kindergarten, I think the chance of contracting Hep B is probably pretty low based on how it's contracted. And so a lot of parents are like, that may not be what we want, but then you're going to be denied to be able to see. They have places, and I don't think it's going on in Florida, but we need protections against this, where they have denied people surgeries because they didn't have a flu shot, or they didn't have COVID jab, or they didn't have Hep B and some of this stuff. And that's really weaponizing this against people, imposing bad consequences on them just because the parent may have made a decision on one of those things. And I think that's, pretty much where people are at. But the conflation of, if you don't force somebody to do something and impose penalties on them, then therefore they're not permitted to do it? No, of course they're permitted to do it. And I saw a lot of stuff over there. The Surgeon General of Florida is taking away vaccine. He never said anything. He never said that there wouldn't be any availability. Obviously, that's not his position. But I think his position is that if you provide information and persuasion, that's better than coercion. And here's the deal. You see a lot of back and forth up in Washington about CDC and everything. We just have to acknowledge that it was a catastrophic failure during COVID. And I'd say our Surgeon General, who feels very strongly about this, in March of 2020, Joe Latipo said we shouldn't do lockdowns. He was pilloried for saying that. Very few people were willing to say that. He said you shouldn't be forcing young school children to wear masks shortly thereafter that. He was pilloried for saying that. He said that schools needed to be open for in-person instruction when Florida did it. He was supportive of that. He was pilloried for that. He said you should not mandate mRNA vaxes on people and let it be their choice. He was pilloried for that. So on all these different things, he was doing what he thought was correct policy and what was in the interest of people, including their individual freedom. And he was pilloried, but yet he was right. He was right on all those. All those things. The lockdowns were harmful. The mask mandates on kids. Now, I overruled those in Florida, but there were school districts that wanted to do it. The forcible mRNA shots, that was wrong. Having kids locked out of school for a year that was wrong. So, you're in a situation where, he's got very strong feelings about coercion ending up being counterproductive when it applies to these medical situations. And I would just say, because when, he asked me, he's like, because he took certain action, there was regulatory mandates that were not in statute, like Hep B, and he said, first of all, we don't have the really true authority to be doing that. So he took that away. Even though there's exemptions, he's doing that. And then he's making sure that the exemptions can't be watered down. So that's the actions he actually took. Now, some of the stuff in statute, obviously, that would require additional legislation. But when he told me, he's like, look, I want to say that I don't believe in any of these. Do you mind? I was like, say what you believe, man. Go ahead and do it. But I think one of the things when he told me, he's like, Britain doesn't have any mandates. Sweden doesn't have any mandates. Most of the provinces in Canada don't. Norway, Ireland, all these places, and basically the results are not dissimilar from the United States in terms of all this. And I think the reason is because parents are provided information. They're not being coerced. They're doing it. And I think when given accurate information, I think they're going to do what's best for their kids. I mean, everyone wants their kids to grow up to be healthy. And I think that's what you see in those countries that don't use coercion and don't use mandates to be able to do it. But those exemptions that he is fortifying in Florida law, are something that a lot of parents currently are opting into. And I think part of that is, I think some people just have views on what they want for their kids. But I do think some of it is a skepticism when they're being told, hey, wait a minute, you told me I had to put a mask on a 2-year-old kid. You told me I had to do this. And so when they're telling you, even if they're right, I think some people are pushing back against it. So it's going to take some time to rebuild trust there. And I think what the Surgeon General's position is the way you build trust is to provide information and use persuasion rather than try to ostracize people from society if they make a different choice.
Was Governor DeSantis speaking earlier at that news conference where he was talking about sales tax holiday that began today, but was asked a question about ending vaccine mandates here in the state of Florida. Certainly a conversation that we are going to hear a lot more about moving forward, especially as we get closer to the legislative session. You know, lawmakers are going to be weighing in on that and certainly have a lot to say with that as well. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. As we go to break here, going to give you this view of downtown Orlando again. Looks like those clouds getting darker out there. Hope you have that rain jacket handy on this Monday afternoon. We'll be right back with more Florida Live after this here on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. Welcome back into Florida Live. Here is a live look at the Stardust Racers, a roller coaster at Epic Universe. One of several award-winning attractions that Universal was just recognized by when it comes to the Golden Ticket Awards handed out by Amusement Today. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. So yeah, a lot of recognition for Universal's theme parks and specifically Epic Universe. Some big things to be excited about there. And so joining me live now to talk about this is one of our theme park experts, Theron White. He's a lead publisher of Everything You Need to Know. That's EYNTK.info. And Theron, always good to talk with you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Yeah, I am happy to join and happy to celebrate that Universal has gotten these well-deserved awards.
Theron, so first of all, just give us the rundown here. 5 Golden Ticket Awards for Universal Orlando Resort from Amusement Today. Again, like we said, most of them for Epic Universe, but Volcano Bay also bringing home an award.
Yeah, that is correct. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Golden Ticket Awards by Amusement Today, they're kind of like the Oscars or the Tonys for the theme park industry. There's a couple of different award ceremonies that are done throughout the year. There's also the IAPA Brass Ring. There's the TEA's Thea Award. But this is one of the very, very big award ceremonies, and it's given out to theme parks all over the world. So the fact that Universal didn't just get 1 or 2, they got 5, and for multiple parks across their resorts, this is a really, really big deal for them. They were the #1 award winner of the entire ceremony, with, of course, Epic Universe taking home 4. And then their water park, Volcano Bay, also got the award. That is the first time that the Volcano Bay has gotten that award, and it has taken away from Schlitterbahn over in Texas that had it for over 25 years. So the fact that they got that, it really seems they've gotten some recognition, maybe some changes in the park and their new nighttime offerings. So I'm happy to see that the Universal was, it's not just their new park. They're proving that they can get these awards for every single opportunity.
Yeah, and before we dive into the things with Epic Universe, let's stay on Volcano Bay for a minute, because I know we've talked before about some of the new offerings and some of those changes and things that they have brought to Volcano Bay, and it seems like that has been a focus, trying to bring some of those new experiences to those existing parks.
Yeah, some of the things that are changing already and things that are coming up with Volcano Bay is going to be the loss of their Tapu Tapu bands. For anyone that's there, that basically helps you be able to skip the line. You go and with these bands, it's free for everyone that goes, and it basically puts you in a virtual queue. It seems that Universal either didn't like that system or they're confident enough with their own line system that they don't feel like that's needed anymore, so they are going to be getting rid of that as well as changing up some of their park hours. The newest thing they've begun offering is going to be the Volcano Bay Nights. I personally went to its first night earlier this year in April. It was fantastic. You get to go to the park, get to see there for the sunset, and when the sun is fully down, this park with the lights on and everything is fantastic. I really, really enjoyed being able to experience that. Going on some of the rides with virtually no wait, having some snacks, having some entertainment walking around. That was a great change to the park, and while I don't know if that's what maybe pushed them over the edge, it could have been part of it.
Now let's talk about some of these other awards that they got, including, let's give you a live look at Stardust Racers again here. One of those roller coasters that just kind of literally takes your breath away, I think, Theron, and it won Best New Coaster. Talk to us about Stardust Racers and kind of what you think separates it and why it was able to bring home that award.
So I have personally said, I've been on roller coasters all around the world. After going on Stardust Racers a few times, I said that it was my absolute favorite roller coaster on the planet. Now, of course, there's a million roller coasters out there. Maybe there's more I need to try, but of the ones that I've been able to do, this coaster just stands out to me. The dueling aspect and having music while you're on the ride already makes it an incredibly rare offering across the world. But Universal was so smart with this attraction. It goes upside down, but it only does it once. It launches, but not to a level that's too scary for your average roller coaster rider. And so I think this roller coaster has an amazing sense of balance. It knows how to go thrill without going too scary. It knows to be able to have these long elements where you're diving in throughout the park, and it's just got a fun theme. I mean, literally, some of the people inside of the ride, the team members, they say howdy and yahoo, because they're supposed to be like cowboys that are wrangling these comets down from space to be able to let us ride on them. And that's just, it's weird, but in the best way possible. I also think it adds a lot of energy to this park, not just in the one section for Celestial Park, but you can see this roller coaster from a couple of areas inside of Epic Universe, and just the screams and the energy and the laughs, that's something that's really, really great to see. I do think for New Coaster that this was a well-deserved award. They really tried on this. It's very apparent that they put a lot into it, and I think that is an award that was well won.
And slightly different experiences too, depending on kind of which of the two tracks you take. So it's one that you want to ride more than just once and kind of get that full experience. So I think that is definitely a good one. So best dark ride goes to Monsters Unchained: The Frankenstein Experiment, and certainly not surprised that that ride wins an award, Theron.
Yeah, it was funny for the awards ceremony. I bet it was going back and forth between a lot of different attractions around the world, but definitely it was going to be Monsters Unchained, and I'm sure the Harry Potter Battle at the Ministry was going to be on there as well. So it's funny that two of Universal's attractions were probably competing against each other. They definitely deserve this award. This is not only something that was bold, it's something new. It does high-speed animatronics. It has an incredible amount of efficiency. If you go to the park, the ride can keep itself under 30 minutes every day, consistently, which would seem like a bad idea for a ride that's brand new. You think people want to get on, but the ride is so good at pumping through people that you could experience it numerous times a day and still enjoy that attraction. This is a fantastic ride, and the land it's even in, one is the best new concept for the Dark Universe land. The whole land, the ride, everything about it, I think, is extremely bold, and that is what got them the award. It's something that's not just, we built a really fun ride, but we took a very strange concept. Horror and the Universal Monsters is not something that's going to be necessarily brand new. It's not necessarily something that's going to be always loved, because not everyone loves horror, but this ride in this land did find that middle ground of being able to say, look, this is just scary enough and just spooky enough to be a love letter to those old horror films, to those monster films, and it's also going to be, of course, something that kids and families can go and explore. I remember before this park opened, we had talked about this a lot, wondering how scary this ride was going to be, and I'm actually really glad that it's not as scary as I had initially thought. I have a couple of friends that don't love horror experiences. They would never go to Horror Nights or Hallow Scream, and this is their favorite ride in the entire park.
Well, and you talk about how it kind of fits into that dark moor land, and as soon as you walk through that portal, it really is just so immersive. And then you step inside the waiting area for Monsters Unchained, and I mean, it's just all so immersive.
Yeah, it is a very transformative experience. That is kind of the thing for all of Epic Universe, though. When you walk through those portals, you're supposed to be teleported to that new land, and I definitely think that Dark Universe and its Village of Darkmoor does that. You walk in, and between the buildings and the characters and the team members walking around, it's got that, and the music, and especially at night. I mean, it's called Dark Universe. When it's at night, it really, really transforms in that way to not only see some of the lighting effects, but the fire that's going off of the tavern. And then once you step into the queue itself, you step into the Frankenstein Manor, and it is intense. It's intense in the best way possible. It has really got that storyline done from whichever floor you're on. You start on the first floor and really explore the manor and get some of that backstory. The second floor is when you're starting to learn more about Victoria and what she's kind of done. And then you're going and you're getting to meet some of these characters. We've got Igor. We have got Victoria Frankenstein. We've got some of the other characters in there. And I think that just keeps stacking on top of each other, especially when you exit and a lot of those characters are also out in the land as well.
And finally, Theron, the Best New Attraction Installation Award going to Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. You talked about it kind of going back and forth, likely competing with Monsters Unchained, but also another ride that just kind of takes your breath away as soon as you walk in.
Yeah, I think this one was almost a shoo-in when it came to specifically the words attraction installation. So for anyone that hasn't been in there before, this ride is monstrous. And the queue is borderline absurd that they did all this. Universal states that there are over 80,000 tiles just in the main atrium, and there's over 120,000 hand-placed tiles throughout the entirety of the attraction. That is an insane number. I mean, if we don't even talk about the ride, placing 120,000 tiles down somewhere is insane. And when you walk through it, whether or not you go on the ride, you can actually just go into part of the queue and get to explore it. If maybe you're not a big ride person, you have got to explore this queue. You walk in and your jaw drops. You really are teleported through the Metro Flu. You get